So really, let's just get into a battle and show you how it's done. Unless one of my eggs decides to hatch. Wow. It's like my game is telling me I need to finally make that breeding guide. This is going to be your guide for SOS battles in Pokemon Sun and Moon, so all we have to do to get an SOS battle started is to find a wild Pokemon encounter, and this is what I was looking for. So there's a lot of different things that can happen with an SOS battle. Like, you can do a wild Pokemon encounter. I was specifically looking for a wrestling encounter for details later. Now, what you also have to do is go to a Pokemon Center after you've completed the trials on the second island and buy some Adrenaline Orbs. So what an Adrenaline Orb does is it makes a wild Pokemon nervous, which really helps the start of an SOS battle. That when a Pokemon calls for help, that's really all it takes. You might have actually seen this without doing any of the methods I describe in this video, because an SOS battle can just kind of happen at any time. So by using an Adrenaline Orb, it'll make an opposing Pokemon nervous, and then also what you want to do is get them to a lowered state of health. Now, we do have to kind of wait out this Trapinch right now, but there are going to be a couple of things right there, that the lower the Pokemon's health is, the more likely it is to call for an ally, because, hey, it needs help, and there's going to be a lot of things working with this. Now, the reason why I am battling a Trapinch right now is because certain Pokemon do call against other different Pokemon. So as we can see right here, I'm on Cerebi, and the biggest thing... Oh, also, Trapinch just called for help right now, and help did not appear. So that's another thing that could happen, even at full health. Trapinch did try to call for help, but all you have to do is go for that false swipe, and that is going to drop Trapinch pretty low if you have a high enough Pokemon with false swipe. So, as you can see, when the Pokemon gets lower, it is more likely to call for help, and it did not call for help this turn. So if we go back to Cerebi, I will say that SOS battles are probably the most research-intensive things in Pokemon, that if you want to find out how to get a Pokemon, or if you want to see what the SOS battles tables are, you will have to go to Cerebi, because they have the Poliwrath section. As you can see, I'm in the Hyena Desert section, and I can just click on any route, and we'll pop into this. Also, it talks about SOS slots. So as you can see, some Pokemon are going to have the same Pokemon for SOS slots, but other Pokemon might have different, such as Magikarp. You can counter Magikarp, and it will summon a Gyarados as it calls for help, which is a possibility. And depending on the Pokemon that you're looking for, you might need to find it out that way. So what you can do is you can click on Bruxish, and then by clicking on Bruxish, you can go down here, and it tells you all the routes and all the areas that you can find Bruxish, and then the details will kind of keep going down from there. Also, on the SOS page, there's a lot of specific things going on, and as you can see right here, there are Pokemon that are exclusive to SOS weather battles. As you can see right here, Trapinch can only be found in rustling spots because it's just Dugtrio or Sandile otherwise, and since it is a weather-triggered SOS battle because there's currently a sandstorm going on, this is the only way of getting Gabite and the only way of getting Gibble in Pokemon Sun and Moon. So I'm trying to prove a lot of points at once right now, but honestly, what I keep saying about SOS battles is that it sounds a lot more complicated than it really is. That once you've done a couple of SOS battles, you can kind of really get a good feel for it, and also it just kind of plays itself, that once you get a Pokemon on low health, and once it starts calling for help, everything's going to get good. Now, Trapinch seems to be a bit annoying because it's not going to call for help when it's underground, but at the end of this turn, it might? There we go. So this is kind of like the rush that you have to do to try to go for a Gabite or some kind of other Pokemon, and it looks like the help refuses. Oh, this poor Trapinch, not getting any help. If that happens, there's a couple of options you can do. As you can see right here, I'm healing up just to stay safe, because it is kind of difficult in a sandstorm to not have a rock, ground, or steel Pokemon taking damage all the time. But also, if help does not appear, you can use a junk item. I prefer Awakenings, that you can buy Awakenings at any store for 100 Pokédollars each. So they're very cheap, and that's how you waste a turn, because you do have to be mindful of what's going on right now. So that's going to be a Trapinch right there. So all I have to really do is just knock out this Trapinch, and the chain will keep on going. So those are just kind of the things that you have to consider right there. And if help didn't appear, then I would have used an Awakening and just kind of waited until I get the Pokemon that I want. Now, a couple of interesting things do happen while you are chaining for Pokemon, that there's an increased chance of getting shiny Pokemon. So every time a new Pokemon is summoned, there's going to be a higher chance of that Pokemon being shiny than naturally occurring in the wild. And I ended up getting a shiny Salandit in 14 turns of a battle. Or not 14 turns, but 14 KOs of another Pokemon in a battle. So it's greatly increased odds on the shiny. Also, EV training does come into play. Now, I do have a shiny guide and an EV training guide that I will link in the description below just to kind of elaborate on these a bit more. But effectively, when EV training, all I have to do is get the proper EV Pokemon that you're KOing. So I believe Trapinch gives like attack EVs. Don't quote me on that, but I think that that's what it gives. And if you're going to be going for attack EVs, then all you have to do is knock out 7 of the Trapinch that appear, and that is going to max out your stat and attack, because with a power item, Poliwrath, and then this chaining method, like, you do need a power item Poliwrath again, that is explained in the video. Both the power item and Poke Rush, you'll be able to get an insane amount of EVs, 36 EVs per KO on an SOS Pokemon, so that's pretty nuts right there. And then, like, yeah, you just kind of go through the motions. That I can really not stress enough that you just have to be mindful of what's going on. It's very easy, it's a very simplistic system, it's pretty mindless, but just make sure that if the Pokemon isn't summoned that you don't accidentally break your chain right there. Also, other things that can come out of SOS battles are Pokemon with hidden abilities, or also Pokemon that have higher IVs, so you can start a lot of breeding off of these SOS battles as we get higher IV hidden ability Pokemon, and that kind of follows through right there. So right now I'm just going to do my example of he's digging, there's nothing to do, I'm going to use one of my mini awakenings because it's a very cheap way to waste the turn. Also, I do recommend buying potions if you are farming lower Pokemon, because the potions, they'll keep the damage that you keep taking off of you a little bit, and those are also pretty cheap as well. I'm out of regular potions though, so now I'm using hyper potions, which is probably a little too expensive. But now as I'm going for the Gabite, I can show you all the other things. This is why I recommend that you use Cerebi for all of the specifics, because I'm not going to be able to show you and get you to memorize off of this video. Like, it's just a lot simpler to go on a page, find the Pokemon really quickly. It's just a lot easier to go on this page, say I want Politoed, instead of trying to like click through my video again if you come back to it to try to find it. But it does have to be raining, so there's a lot of different things that can happen with SOS battles. That we have weather SOS battles, so that means you have Politoed, Poliwhirl, Poliwrath, Cast Form. All these Pokemon can only appear when there's weather in effect, and you might notice that at some points in the game. You know, in some of the areas of the game, there's often natural weather. That right now, my Malay Garden doesn't have any weather, so I can't get a Poliwhirl, Poliwrath, Politoed, or Cast Form right now. But that just kind of shows that if you see weather, it might be worth just diving straight into an SOS battle to try to get those weather effects going. And now I'm still trying to farm up for this Gabite as I just beat the Trapinch while talking about this guy. Okay, so I just caught a Gabite, but it was actually next to the Sandile, so I'm actually starting to wonder that maybe it just doesn't matter, that once you get a Weather SOS battle, it changes the entire table, which is actually kind of what the Cerebi guide suggests. I was just looking at it like this, like, okay, I see Trapinch, and it's going to be with the Gabite thing, but no, the weather-triggered SOS battles are just going to change the slots around, even though it's still going to be very, very high chances of getting the other Pokemon. So I got with the Sandile, seems possible with all the Pokemon in the desert, which means it's not really too hard. I didn't encounter Cast Form, so the odds are still pretty rare though. But then there's also a ton of other Pokemon that are exclusive to SOS battles. The legendary level 10 Salamence. Like, if you see a friend that says, I caught a level 10 Salamence, or if you see people that are talking about that, and I did include this in my 5 rare Pokemon video, and also just my level 10 Salamence catch, that I actually went out and did it, that it actually takes a very long time. Bagon is only a 1% encounter in a specific patch of bush. So if you go and watch my rare Pokemon video, it is inaccurate information. I'm sorry, I was in the wrong patch. But if you go to the correct one with the Bagon in it on Route 3, that is the only place to get Salamence, and it's only a 1% encounter on the Bagon. If you go to Kalei Bay, that's where you're going to find Shelgon, and that's a 10% encounter on the Bagon. So Bagon's more common, but you'll only get the Shelgon and not the Salamence. Same for other Pokemon, Lucario, Garbodor, Pangoro, Mareanie. Mareanie is the only 7th generation Pokemon that is going to be exclusive to SOS battles, and I have a Mareanie guide out as well. That pretty much you just have to go and get a Corsola on Route 9, but that's a low encounter rate. That's a low encounter rate to get a Mareanie. You can also get Hakamo-o and some other pretty crazy Pokemon. Sableye is a non-evolutionary chained Pokemon that'll be able to appear when you're doing these SOS battles. You can even find a low-level Dragonite and some other Pokemon, as we mentioned before, as we go through this list. So there's a lot of Pokemon SOS exclusives that are going to be pretty just tied together to some other Pokemon. As you can see right here, we can click on the Pikachu and it'll say the method of doing it is Route 1, so you go to the details of Route 1, and then it'll say SOS battle only in specific patches, so that's why you have to go and click on that. So what we'll do is we'll go to the Route 1 on Poke-Earth, and then we'll see how we end up getting the Pikachu. So it's just a lot of like information and chaining right there. So if we have Grubbin right here, Grubbin has a chance of SOS battling, and then it can call a Pikachu, Happiny, or Pichu, and that's pretty much what you're looking for right there. So I'm still trying to get that Gabite, because some of these Pokemon do have a rare chance of occurring, depending on like how rare the Pokemon is initially, and then all of the SOS slots that are required for it. But it also shows like the specific patches where you can encounter these Pokemon as well, and then the SOS battling and chaining from there. So just a lot of guides and resourcing that you need to do to figure some things out. The activating the SOS battles and all that other stuff pretty much explained. Now I'm trying to figure out where it is. Like, as SOS Battles chain, there's a variety of perks. As the chain increases, you have a higher chance of getting Pokemon with maximum IVs, capping at 4. This is also the only way you can find Pokemon with their hidden abilities. In addition to that, likelihood of encountering shiny Pokemon also increases. So there's a lot of really awesome perks to SOS Battles that it's good competitively, it's good for shiny hunting, it's good for getting the hidden abilities. Also, hidden abilities can breed down afterwards. So this is also a really good way that if you have a friend that wants a hidden ability Pokemon, you know, you can catch it, you can breed it, you can trade it for another hidden ability Pokemon that they get. And this is effectively the social nature of Pokemon all in one place. That normally EV training was through horde battles, and then if you wanted to go for shiny hunting, you had to Dex Nav instead. IVs were and egg moves were going to be through the Dex Nav as well in Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. So it's effectively everything tied into one, and like I said, it's a pretty simple system right here. So as you can see, I'm taking damage. I should have probably stocked up on some potions or stuff, but overall, you can effectively just kind of do this. It's very hard to screw up, and it's a very simple system that just gets more complicated with how deep you want to go into it, such as the different Pokemon that can be found, and that. But once you have False Swipe and an Adrenaline Orb, it's pretty much good to go. So guys, enjoy the video. Hope you all have a nice day. Thank you very much for watching. Goodbye. Nah.